Now that we have created a simple little app for ourselves, let's take one step ahead and see some deeper sides of JavaScript. Now, what we have created so far is a simple app. Yes, it does not do much, but it's still an app. So we understood the concept of object arrays and functions and so forth. So if we read our code over here, we see on line number 4, this is something called alert, and it has these brackets. If you notice, it looks very much like a function. So you see we created a function over here and we invoke the function by putting the name of the function and these brackets and some optional parameters, right? This looks like a function, doesn't it? Let's take a look. In my console, I'm going to simply put an alert and then hit enter. And yes, it is a function. It is a function which is given to us for free by the browser. It's the browser contains the JavaScript engine, and the browser actually gave these extra features to us as developers to use, because as developers for front end want to control the browser and the page. So it gives us these features so we can use JavaScript and access these objects and these functions to manipulate and create these user interfaces for the browser. So these functionalities are given to us for free by the browser. Now in case of Node.js, which is also a JavaScript engine, the alert functionality is not given to us because it's not a browser, right? But some other features are given, like the file system and the process and so forth. So it's still the same engine, but different features are given to us, which are still the JavaScript type, which is in this case a function. Now let's take a look at the console. Now remember when we were learning about objects, we looked at the objects. If we wanted to access certain properties, we would do the name of the object dot the key. Remember that? This is what's happening over here. This console is actually an object, and it has a value, a key, a property named log. And this log happens to be a function. And that's why we're using these brackets over here to invoke that particular function. And if you remember, whenever there is a function which is a property of an object, it's actually called a method. So log is actually a method of the console object. So let's take a look over here. So if I simply put in console and hit enter, something shows up. It looks like an object. If I click over here, there's so many different functions over here. There is the assert method, clear, context, count, so many others. So there should be log over here as well. And yes, there it is. Log is a method, which happens to be a function. Of course, that's why it's a method. Log is a key and the value is a function. And it has whatever features inside, doesn't matter, right? So it has other properties in it. So in the end of the day, you understand that JavaScript is basically built up of these basic types. And that is a great understanding that this example gives you. Remember, we looked at the array.isArray method to check if the property or the value of an array was really an array or not. That's the same case. This is a method on the array object. So if you want to look at it, we can simply do array and hit enter. And over here, it says it's a function. But actually, you remember when we looked at our cheat sheet, a function is actually a type of object. So just the way an object can have different key value pairs and different properties, a function can also have different properties that we didn't look at when we were looking at this cheat sheet, but we're going to explore that in a future video, in a future advanced lesson. But basically, just the way we do array dot, and you see all these different properties are actually available on this particular array object. And one of them is actually isArray that we have actually used to check the value, if a value is in fact an array or not. These examples are to emphasize that everything in JavaScript comes from these basic types. And the more and more advanced we become in JavaScript, we're going to keep coming back to these basic constructs, specifically the object, because it's well known in the JavaScript world that everything in JavaScript is an object. And as we become advanced, we're going to see more and more of it. So going back to my original a few videos ago, the early videos, I emphasized that you take the foundations very seriously. And now I'm sure that you're starting to see that. Talk to you in the next lesson.